The aging stellar cartographer Artemis station hung silently in the void between stars, its sensors endlessly mapping the unexplored regions of the Orion Arm. Captain Sarah Chen stood at her usual spot on the observation deck, watching the eternal dance of distant stars through the reinforced viewports. 20 years of service had taught her that space held endless surprises, but nothing could have prepared her for what her station was about to discover. "Captain, you need to see this." Dr. Raiko Tanaka's voice crackled through the station's comm system. The normally composed xenorchaeologist sounded unusually excited. Chen made her way to the science lab, where multiple holographic displays showed what appeared to be an enormous structure floating in the darkness of space. The object was perfectly geometric, a massive dodecahedron with each face covered in intricate patterns that seemed to pulse with a faint blue-green light. "We detected it at the edge of the Hades cluster," Raiko explained, manipulating the holographic controls to zoom in on various sections of the structure. "It's approximately 50 kilometers in diameter, and preliminary scans suggest it's been there for at least 100,000 years. The discovery quickly attracted the attention of the Galactic Council. Within days, representatives from various species arrived at Artemis Station, eager to study what many believed to be evidence of a long-lost precursor civilization. Among them was High Scholar Zixtal of the Viridian Collective, a species known for their advanced technology and somewhat condescending attitude toward younger races. Fascinating. Zixtal's translator rendered his clicks and whistles into English as he studied the holographic displays. "Though I must say, it's rather primitive compared to current Viridian engineering standards. Note the inefficient use of space in its design." Chen bit back a retort. The Viridians' technological superiority had made them increasingly dismissive of other species, particularly humans, whom they viewed as barely more than clever primitives. The first survey team departed for the structure the next day. Chen insisted on leading it herself, much to Zixtal's apparent amusement. Their shuttle approached one of the massive faces of the dodecahedron, its lights illuminating the strange patterns that covered the surface. "These markings," Dr. Tanaka said, running her scanner over the structure's surface, "they're not random. They appear to be some form of data storage system, but it's unlike anything I've ever seen. Clearly the work of a species far more advanced than humans," Zixtal commented. "Perhaps ancestors of the Viridians." Chen ignored him, focusing instead on a section of the wall that seemed different from the rest. As she approached it, something extraordinary happened. The patterns began to glow more intensely, and a doorway materialized in the seemingly solid surface. "Impossible," Zixtal chittered. "Our scans showed no signs of active technology." The team entered cautiously, their boots touching down on floors that looked like polished obsidian. The interior was vast, with corridors that seemed to stretch for kilometers in every direction. As they moved deeper into the structure, more systems began to activate, responding to their presence, or more specifically, as they would soon discover, to Chen's presence. A holographic interface suddenly materialized before them, displaying symbols that made Zixtal's compound eyes widen in surprise. "These are impossible to decode without proper context," he declared. "It would take years of study to." But Chen was already reaching out toward the interface, driven by an inexplicable familiarity. The symbols rearranged themselves before her eyes, transforming into perfectly legible English. "Human DNA DTCTED. Initiating PY and AROI systems. REAK. Igation. Welcome home. Chicha Eldorian of Earth." The silence that followed was deafening. Chen turned to face the stunned Viridian scholar, allowing herself a small smile. "You were saying something about primitive species, High Scholar." As if in response to her words, the entire structure hummed to life, revealing technologies that would make even the most advanced Viridian engineers question everything they thought they knew about human history. The galaxy had indeed been laughing at humanity's perceived technological inferiority, but that laughter was about to die in their throats. What they had discovered wasn't just an alien artifact. It was humanity's forgotten legacy, and it was about to change everything. The next 48 hours aboard the ancient structure were a blur of activity. News of the station's response to human DNA had spread quickly through the galactic community, drawing more researchers and diplomats from dozens of species. Captain Chen watched as they swarmed through the activated sections of the station, their earlier condescension replaced by barely concealed anxiety. Dr. Tanaka had barely slept, her eyes bright with excitement, as she worked to decode the vast amounts of data now streaming through the station's systems. "It's extraordinary," she told Chen as they stood in what appeared to be a central control room. "The technology here doesn't just surpass current Viridian capabilities. It operates on principles we haven't even theorized yet." The room itself was a testament to that fact. Three-dimensional holograms floated in the air, showing star systems and what appeared to be travel routes that twisted through space in impossible ways. The floor beneath them seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal, yet remained perfectly solid under their feet. "Captain," a young lieutenant called out, his voice trembling slightly. "We found something in the historical archives. You need to see this." The holographic display shifted, showing Earth as it had appeared over 100,000 years ago. The planet was surrounded by massive structures, orbital rings, space elevators, and facilities that dwarfed anything humanity had built in the modern era. The image zoomed out, revealing a solar system teeming with human activity, with ships that made their current vessels look like crude toys in comparison. "This can't be right," High Scholar Zixtel chittered, his translator struggling to convey his agitation. "Human civilization is barely 2,000 years old. These records must be falsified." But the evidence was becoming impossible to deny. As more systems activated, they revealed more about humanity's forgotten past. The station itself was part of a vast network, a defensive grid created by ancient humans to protect not just Earth, but the entire sector of space. "Look at this," Dr. Tanaka called out, her fingers dancing over a console that responded instantly to her touch. "These aren't just historical records. They're technical specifications, quantum phase drives, gravity manipulation systems, temporal stabilizers. Our ancestors had mastered technologies we can't even comprehend." The revelation sent shockwaves through the alien diplomatic corps. Species that had once looked down on humanity were suddenly reassessing their positions. The Viridians, in particular, seemed deeply shaken by the discovery that their most advanced technologies were merely crude approximations of systems humans had perfected millennia ago. But it was what they found next that truly changed everything. Deep within the station's core, they discovered a message, a warning left by their ancestors. The hologram showed a human admiral, his face grave as he spoke across the centuries. "To our descendants, if you're viewing this, it means you've finally returned to the stars. The station's awakening will have already alerted the others. They'll be coming. The harvesters. The reason we built all of this. The reason we had to hide our true nature from the galaxy." The message continued, revealing a truth that made Chen's blood run cold. The ancient humans hadn't abandoned their technology. They had hidden it, deliberately regressing their civilization to protect themselves and the younger species of the galaxy from a threat so terrible it had nearly destroyed them at the height of their power. As if responding to the message, new systems began activating throughout the station. Defensive arrays powered up, and deep within the structure, something began to stir. Warning signals flashed across the holographic displays, long-range sensors detecting something moving at the edges of known space. Chen looked at the assembled aliens, seeing the fear in their eyes. Humanity had been the galaxy's joke, the upstart species that dared to reach for the stars. Now they were its only hope against a returning nightmare. "Get me a secure channel to Earth," she ordered, her voice steady despite the weight of history pressing down on her shoulders. "And begin downloading everything we can from these databases. It's time for humanity to remember who we really are." In the darkness of space, more stations were awakening, responding to the presence of their creators' children. The galaxy had laughed at humanity's primitive technology. never knowing they were watching a sleeping giant. Now, that giant was finally beginning to stir, and the laughter was about to turn to awe. The ancient station's archives held secrets that kept unfolding like the petals of an infinite flower. 2 weeks after the initial discovery, Captain Chen found herself in a hastily established command center, surrounded by the brightest minds Earth could send. The room hummed with activity as researchers worked to understand the vast repository of knowledge their ancestors had left behind. Professor Marcus Webb, Earth's leading quantum physicist, stood before a holographic display showing what appeared to be the schematics for a drive system. His hands trembled as he manipulated the image. This completely rewrites everything we thought we knew about Phi. The Harvesters, as their ancestors had named them, emerged from the historical records like nightmares given form. Vast beings that existed partially in higher dimensions, they traveled between galaxies, consuming civilizations and converting entire species into biomechanical slaves. The ancient humans had fought them to a standstill, but at a terrible cost. The regression was deliberate, Dr. Tanaka explained, pulling up more historical data. Our ancestors knew the Harvesters would return eventually, but they needed time. Time to prepare, time to seed backup plans throughout the galaxy. So they did something unprecedented. They engineered their own technological downfall. The plan had been brilliant in its audacity. The ancient humans had hidden their advanced technology in plain sight, disguising their defensive stations as natural phenomena or dead space. They had then systematically dismantled their civilization, erasing their own memories through carefully designed biological and technological means. "Look at this," Webb called out, his voice filled with wonder. He had accessed another section of the archives, revealing images of massive construction projects. They didn't just hide their technology. They hid entire solar systems. The maps we've been using, the ones that every species in the galaxy relies on. They're all wrong. Chen watched as the holographic display showed the true extent of human space from 100,000 years ago. Hidden behind quantum fields and dimensional folds were thousands of star systems, all part of the ancient human defense network. And now, piece by piece, that network was coming back online. A young lieutenant burst into the command center, his face pale. "Captain, we're detecting energy signatures from the Hades cluster. Something's emerging from the quantum fold." The main display shifted, showing a massive structure slowly materializing in what had previously been empty space. It was a shipyard, easily the size of Earth's moon, its docks holding vessels that made modern dreadnoughts look like children's toys. "They left us everything we'd need," Chen breathed, understanding dawning in her eyes. "They knew we'd need time to remember, to understand, but once we did." The station's AI confirmed her theory, its voice resonating through the command center. Phase 1 of reactivation complete. Beginning integration of modern human neural patterns with ancestral knowledge base. Estimated time to full military readiness, 30 days. High Scholar Zixtal, who had remained on the station as the Viridian representative, watched the proceedings with a mixture of fear and awe. "Your species," he said, his translator struggling to convey the complexity of his emotions, "you deliberately trapped yourselves in technological infancy, endured centuries of mockery and condescension, all to protect the galaxy from a threat we never knew existed." "Not just to protect," Chen corrected him, her eyes fixed on the display showing more hidden facilities coming online across the galaxy. "To prepare. Every advancement we made in our primitive state was built on fragments of ancestral memory. Every technological breakthrough was guided by safeguards they left in our very DNA. We weren't just surviving. We were rebuilding ourselves, piece by piece." The station shuddered as another system activated, this one deeper and more powerful than anything they'd seen before. Warning signals flashed across every display, long-range sensors detecting massive disturbances at the edge of the galaxy. The Harvesters, drawn by the reactivation of the defense network, were finally returning. But this time, humanity wouldn't face them at the height of their power. This time, they would face them with both the wisdom of the ancients and the fierce determination forged through millennia of struggle. The galaxy had laughed at humanity's primitive technology, never realizing they were watching a carefully orchestrated performance. As more hidden facilities activated across space, Chen realized the true magnitude of what their ancestors had accomplished. They hadn't just preserved their technology, they had created a path for their descendants to surpass them. The mockery of other species had been a small price to pay for the chance to save not just humanity, but all life in the galaxy. The time for hiding was over. The sleeping giant was awake, and the galaxy was about to remember why the ancient humans had been feared even by beings that dwelt in higher dimensions. The Galactic Council chamber was in chaos. Representatives from 100 species argued as holographic displays showed the impossible. Massive structures appearing throughout known space, ancient human technology awakening on a scale that defied comprehension. Captain Chen stood before them, her voice cutting through the pandemonium. "The harvesters will reach the outer rim in less than 72 hours, she announced, silencing the chamber. "Everything we've discovered, everything we've reactivated, it's all been in preparation for this moment." The massive display behind her showed the enemy approaching, vast geometric shapes that seemed to twist reality around them, leaving dead space in their wake. The harvesters moved between dimensions as easily as ships moved through space, making conventional defenses useless against them. "Impossible," the Arcturian ambassador declared, his crystalline form vibrating with distress. "Our long-range scans show nothing of the sort." "Because you're still using conventional sensors," Professor Webb explained, stepping forward. He gestured, and new data streams appeared on the display. The ancient humans developed technology that could detect higher dimensional intrusions. They left these systems dormant throughout the galaxy, waiting for us to remember how to use them. The evidence was undeniable. As they watched, more of humanity's hidden legacy revealed itself. Defensive platforms emerged from quantum storage. Entire fleets of ships, unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen, began assembling themselves from seemingly empty space. By the first light, High Scholar Zixtal whispered, his usual condescension replaced by awe. "The storage systems alone. You weren't just hiding technology. You were hiding entire pocket universes." Dr. Tanaka nodded, her fingers dancing across a control panel that interfaced seamlessly with the ancient systems. "Our ancestors created spaces between spaces, folded dimensions to hide their greatest achievements. And now..." She was interrupted by a massive tremor that shook the council chamber. On the main display, a new signal appeared, something massive emerging from hyperspace. But unlike the harvester signals, this was familiar. Human. The chamber's external viewers activated, showing what had appeared above the council world. It was a ship, but calling it merely a ship was like calling a star a light bulb. The vessel was enormous, its hull composed of what appeared to be living metal that shifted and flowed like liquid. Energy patterns rippled across its surface in complex fractals that hurt the eye to look at directly. "The Prometheus," Chen announced, reading from the data streaming across her neural interface, another piece of recovered technology that had been distributed to key human personnel. "One of the last dreadnoughts our ancestors built before the regression. It's been waiting all this time, hidden in a temporal fold." The ship was beautiful in a way that transcended conventional aesthetics, its design incorporating principles of mathematics and physics that most species hadn't even discovered yet. As they watched, it began deploying smaller vessels, each one still larger than the biggest ships in the modern human fleet. "We offer the Prometheus and all our recovered technology to the defense of the galaxy," Chen declared to the stunned council. "But we'll need your help. The harvesters aren't just coming for us. They're coming for every species, every world, every spark of free consciousness in this galaxy." The chamber erupted in discussion again, but this time it was different. The mockery and condescension that had characterized most species' attitudes toward humans was gone, replaced by a growing understanding of just what humanity had sacrificed to protect them all. Deep within the Prometheus, more systems were activating. The ship's AI interfaced with the recovered historical databases, beginning the process of distributing ancient human knowledge to the modern fleet. Weapons that could tear holes in reality itself came online, defense systems that could redirect the energy of entire stars powered up. Multiple harvester vessels detected crossing the dimensional barrier. The ship's AI announced, its voice echoing through the council chamber. Enemy forces significantly larger than historical records indicated. Chen smiled grimly. The harvesters had grown stronger over the millennia. But they weren't the only ones who had evolved. Humanity's long sleep had not been merely about hiding. It had been about growing, learning, becoming something more than their ancestors had been. Signal the defense grid, she ordered. All units prepare for dimensional incursion. It's time to remind the galaxy why the harvesters feared us in the first place. As if in response, the Prometheus's engines ignited, not with conventional thrust, but with energy that bent space itself around the massive vessel. Throughout known space, more ships were emerging from hiding, ancient human technology awakening to face an ancient enemy. The galaxy had laughed at humanity's primitive technology, never knowing they were watching a carefully orchestrated performance that had lasted for millennia. That performance was over now. The battle began not with a bang, but with a ripple in reality itself. The harvesters emerged from higher dimensions like living nightmares, their forms defying conventional physics as they tore their way into normal space. Captain Chen watched from the Prometheus's command center as the enemy she had only seen in ancient records materialized before her. They were beautiful in their terrible way, massive crystalline structures that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions at once, trailing tendrils of dark energy that consumed everything they touched. The closest analogy was a school of predatory fish, if those fish were the size of planets and could bend reality to their will. All defense grid stations reporting ready, Dr. Tanaka announced, her hands moving across interfaces that responded to thought as much as touch. Dimensional anchors are holding steady. The Prometheus hung at the center of humanity's reborn fleet, surrounded by ships that had hidden in dimensional pockets for over 100,000 years. Behind them, the combined forces of the Galactic Council took position, a show of unity that would have been unthinkable just weeks ago. The harvesters are initiating their primary attack pattern, the ship's AI reported. Dimensional shearing detected at multiple points. Chen nodded, feeling the weight of history on her shoulders. Execute Protocol Orpheus. The response was immediate and devastating. The ancient human fleet didn't just fight. They rewrote the laws of physics around them. Ships phase shifted between dimensions, weapons fired beams of concentrated reality that cut through the harvester's dimensional armor like it was tissue paper. The Prometheus led the charge, its living metal hull flowing and adapting to each attack. Energy patterns rippled across its surface in complex fractals, creating defensive fields that existed in dimensions the harvesters couldn't breach. By the eternal void, High Scholar Zixtal whispered from his observer position, "Your ancestors didn't just build weapons. They created new forms of warfare." He was right. The ancient humans had understood that conventional warfare would never be enough against the harvesters. Instead, they had developed technologies that could fight on the same level as their dimensional adversaries. The battle raged across multiple planes of existence. Ships disappeared into higher dimensions, emerging moments later to launch attacks from impossible angles. The harvesters responded with their own dimensional weapons, turning entire sectors of space into dead zones where physics itself ceased to function. But something was different this time. The harvesters, for the first time in their ancient history, showed signs of confusion. Their attacks became erratic, their formations less coordinated. They don't understand, Professor Webb realized, looking up from his analysis of the battle data. They expected to find us as we were before, at the height of our ancient power. Instead, they're facing something new, Chen finished. Something that combines our ancestors' technology with everything we learned during our long sleep. The modern human fleet, though smaller and less advanced than their ancient counterparts, moved in perfect coordination with the recovered vessels. Centuries of fighting without advanced technology had taught humanity lessons about warfare that their ancestors had never known. The combination was proving to be more than the harvesters had anticipated. Multiple harvester vessels attempting dimensional retreat, the AI announced. "Shall we pursue?" Chen looked at the tactical display, watching as the enemy began to withdraw. The harvesters weren't just retreating. They were running. For the first time in their existence, they had encountered something that made them fear. No, she decided. Let them go. Let them carry the message back to whatever dark space they came from. Let them tell others what they found here. The battle wasn't over. Not really. The harvesters would return, perhaps with greater numbers or new weapons. But humanity would be ready. The long sleep was over, and they had emerged stronger than ever before. As the enemy fleet disappeared back into higher dimensions, Chen turned to address the assembled representatives of the galaxy's species. For 100,000 years, you thought you knew what humanity was. You saw our primitive ships, our struggling colonies, and you laughed. But what you saw was just the surface, a carefully crafted disguise that protected not just us, but all of you. She gestured to the massive displays showing the ancient human fleet, now fully awakened and integrated with their modern forces. This is humanity's true legacy. Not just the technology, not just the weapons, but the understanding that true strength comes from being willing to sacrifice everything to protect others. We hid our power not out of fear, but out of duty. The galaxy had indeed laughed at humanity's primitive technology. They had mocked their simple ships and basic weapons. But as the assembled alien representatives watched the ancient human fleet take up defensive positions around their worlds, that laughter had been replaced by something else: respect, gratitude, and perhaps a touch of awe. Humanity had kept their secret for over 100,000 years, enduring mockery and condescension to protect the very species that looked down on them. Now, as the combined fleets began the work of establishing a new defensive network, it was clear that the galaxy would never underestimate humanity again. The sleeping giant had awakened, and it had emerged not just with the power of its ancestors, but with wisdom earned through millennia of patience. The galaxy's laughter had died away, replaced by the recognition that humanity had been, all along, its hidden guardians. And in the depths of space, ancient stations continued to activate, each one a testament to humanity's greatest victory, not the defeat of the harvesters, but the strength to sacrifice everything to protect those who would never know the price that had been paid for their safety.